The Sermon on the Mount continues with 10 more verses, which, if interpreted literally, accepts submission and passivity to an oppressive power, and if the translation is poor, can and has led to the justification of a just war. These passages are often tragically incorrectly interpreted with poor translation or not put into the context of the time in which it is written. Matthew's Gospel was written at a time of considerable tension between the oppressor Rome and the peoples of first century Palestine. The behaviour Jesus describes, slapping the right cheek, suing, forcing to go an extra mile, was not the kind of things anyone could do. They were the actions only of the privileged few, and they were the ones that did it to the crowds that were listening to Jesus. Slapping the right cheek was done by masters to their servants and slaves. It was always done by hitting the back of the right hand against the right cheek. The blow was about asserting power and status over the other. The action was about rank, privilege, and power. By offering the other cheek, it appears that you have become doubly subservient and accepting of your master's authority. However, by offering the other cheek, you are rendering your master powerless. He cannot strike your left cheek with his right hand. Doing this publicly would expose the master to shame and ridicule. Jesus' audience were people subjected to these indignities. They were forced to stifle outrage at this dehumanizing treatment by the hierarchical system of caste, class, race, gender, age, and status due to imperial occupation. The next verse, if anyone wants to sue you, suggests giving away everything, including your underclothes. Indebtedness was endemic in first century Palestine. It was the direct consequence of Roman imperial policy. Why then does Jesus advise to give away everything, including your underclothes? The entire system by which debtors are oppressed has been publicly unmasked. The creditor is revealed to be not a legitimate moneylender, but a party to the reduction of an entire social class to landlessness, destitution, and abasement. This unmasking is not simply punitive, but also offers the creditor an insight, perhaps for the first time in his life, into the results of his practices and offers an opportunity to repent. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, this third example of going the extra mile is drawn from the relatively enlightened practice of limiting the amount of forced or impressed labour that Roman soldiers could levy on subject people to a single mile. As with Jesus' previous examples, by offering to walk another mile, the oppressed can recover the initiative and assert their human dignity in a situation that cannot, for the time being, be changed. Give to everyone who begs. Begging and borrowing were complex social interactions that involved negotiating honour and shame, social respect, status, and money. The teaching here is directed to those who have, not to the poor. It changes the social relationship to one of kinship. Jesus is telling us to treat beggars and borrowers as if they were our whānau. While this was an excellent system in Jesus' time, where there were no other support systems for the less able, it is not advisable today to give to all the beggars on Queen Street. Please direct them to the City Mission. Love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Once again, there is a need to place this in the context of the time. It means to be attached to them, to care for their welfare and fair and just treatment, which is probably harder to achieve than just saying, I love my enemy. In fact, Roger Stark, author of a book called The Rise of Christianity, has suggested that the early Christian willingness to love actively, indiscriminately, and especially in relieving the miseries of hardships in urban life suffered by the poor in the cities such as Antioch was a major factor in Christianity's growth. Jesus was not forbidding self-defense, only the use of violence. Nor was he legitimizing the abandonment of non-violence in order to defend your neighbours. He is rather showing us a way that individuals or large movements can intervene on behalf of justice for our neighbours non-violently. Jesus is offering a way to liberation from servile action and a servile mentality. Gandhi did this. Martin Luther King Jr. did this. Mother Teresa did this. A few weeks ago, Peter and I saw a film called Hidden Figures. This was a film that showed how intelligence and drive can surmount the influence of bigotry, harassment, bullying, and discrimination. Interest to write the book of the same name was sparked by a photograph of staff at NASA taken in 1961. I was 10, where a group of some 35 Afro-American women were standing separately from the rest of the employees, who were largely white and male. Digging deeper, the author uncovered an inspiring story of 3 of those coloured women who battled the ignominy of not only being a woman in a male-dominated world of the early 1960s, but also being coloured in the segregated southern states of the US. Without reverting to aggressive methods to protest their lot, but by turning the other cheek to the abuse they experienced, they were not only able to succeed in their endeavours, but also became some of the most respected employees ever at NASA in the fields of mathematics, engineering, and computing. In the process, the bigots, bullies, harassers, and discriminators were shown to be the frail victims of their environment they were brought up in. This is a powerful film showing the power of non-violent resistance against an unjust system. The recent women's marches internationally protesting the appointment of Donald Trump is another one, and long may they continue. We have scattered examples throughout history of non-violent resistance as a means to achieve social change. And many here today have been part of those protest movements when presented with injustice and unfairness within our society. We follow the words of today's gospel. Out of the heart of the prophetic tradition, Jesus engaged the domination system in both its outer and spiritual manifestations. His teachings on non-violence for a way of being in the world which breaks the spiral towards violence. Jesus reveals a way to fight evil with all power without being transformed into the very evil we fight. When we turn the other cheek, when we give to one who needs, when we love our enemy, we do something where the consequences cannot immediately be measured, but noticeable enough that the created order moves just a little bit closer to God each time it happens. Amen.